About 18 years ago, this is back in the really kind of the late 90s, I had a private practice in Phoenix, Arizona, and over a 2-week period of time, I had 22 ACL reconstructions come into my office. And that was a lot at that time, and it's really before a lot of the great research that was coming out now that we know about with Hewitt and Powers and everybody else, that had published a lot of good research on mechanisms that are associated with non-contact ACL injuries. That research wasn't out there. And so I felt really, I'm treating a lot of these kids, a lot of these young kids, and I just felt compelled to do something about it. So for me, it's really kind of been this lifelong journey. You know, I started this 18 years ago, and I've kind of been pursuing it my entire professional career in trying to find an answer. And I don't know if really there is an answer per se, but I think there's better ways of doing it than what we currently do it today. And that's really kind of what's driven me. It's driven me to go back to school. I've actually published a textbook on this, and it's something that I've been researching on my own, developing programs for ever since. More importantly, just because of kids. You know, there's a lot of kids out there who suffer an ACL injury early in life, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And from the stats, from the research, 79% have osteoarthritis in 12 years. 12 years for a young kid to have osteoarthritis from what we know is really kind of a preventable injury. So that's what motivates me as a father, as a clinician. You know, I want to prevent these types of injuries in kids. In terms of ACL injuries, there's really kind of two kinds of anterior cruciate ligament injuries. One is a contact injury, and those are really the ones that we can't really do that much about. There's preventative equipment and things like that we can do for those. And then there's really the more prevalent one that we see, which is the non-contact ACL injury. And those are typically associated with a movement, and interestingly enough, a movement that we can actually assess, that we can actually quantify. And I've always felt that if you can quantify it, it's actually something that you could treat. A lot of the current research is showing that there's motor learning that goes along with that. There's hip strength, glute medius strength, glute max strength, core strength, things like that, that if we can include that as a part of our overall preseason assessment, identify those that are at risk, then we can create programs or interventions that can help to address those issues, which help to drive, one, a reduction of potential for their injury. But also, one of the things that we're seeing is it also dramatically changes athletic performance. And it makes sense because if you've got sloppy movement, then kinetic energy transfer is not as efficient as it could be. Power output is not as efficient as it could be. So by improving these movements, there's a lot of ways not to just address the injury itself, but also to drive athletic performance.